to never help you out. 'Cause I'm done cleaning up your mess. Found myself in my regrets. I've become a little stronger now. 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 You cashed in on my promises. You know I'm too generous. Now I've learned to never help you out. 'Cause I'm done cleaning up your mess. Found myself in my regrets. I've become a little stronger now. A little stronger now.
This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks. With an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to Eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.
That's right, folks. Those tickets are going fast. I am Bigfoot Michiganrob. It's Friday night, about 6:30, 6:34 Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for everybody for coming on in wherever you are in the United States, the world. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm not going to get into the conference. Get your tickets on Eventbrite. I do that typically during the week, but yeah, it's filling up. We've got a plethora of fantastic speakers, special guests. Of course, our entire crew will be there for that event, the 19th and 20th of September, having the ghost hunt, which is sold out. However, you can also get a tour. Yeah, that's right. We added a tour to the ghost hunt for those of you that weren't able to get your tickets, as they again are sold out. We started promoting this in December, and I got to tell you, that little introduction with text in the background, event of the year. I don't know, I'm going to brag a little bit because the guests we have, the special guests, the speakers we have, everything going on at this event is just blowing up before our very eyes. And so I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see you folks down there when you come on down to Missouri, if you can, in St. Louis or outside of St. Louis, in Richmond. That's going to be fantastic. I want to thank each and every single one of you for coming on in. And don't forget, if you're new here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michiganrob on YouTube. The Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube. Texas Front Porch found on YouTube. Our Paranormal World with Monica Rollins found on YouTube. You can also subscribe to Donnie Cho Says Stuff, Paranormal Paul, PRT with JT, Josh Turner. That's an awesome show. Go check him out. And yeah, and just hit the like button. And, I got to tell you, I'm doing these on Friday now. I'm going to add this to my schedule because this is about the 8th week in a row, every Friday night, right around this time. I've been doing these cryptid encounters from subscribers or emails, and I must say, you guys really enjoy them. I did it on a whim, just to see what type of response I would get, and you guys really do seem to like them. So good old BMR, not only am I on Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock with Krista, Thursday afternoons at 1 with Tex. Then I'm on Saturday nights at midnight or 11 o'clock with the girls and sometimes Tex. And now we're adding a fourth show because it's supply and demand. You guys seem to like these. And I really enjoy doing these for everybody because I I love the data. I love the encounters that people come across, and apparently you guys do. So yeah, I'm going to add another. This is my fourth show I'll be adding, along with all the other things that we all do around here. So I appreciate each and every single one of you coming on in. The super chats, of course, are always open. Not expected, always appreciated, of course. You can become a BMR pirate. Join today, mateys. Join the many, join the few. Of course, it depends on your point of view. Gary Spikes, Diane Boss, John Tempery, Roger Blair, Mickey G, Freaky Geek, Pops, Moon at Noon, Val from Pennsylvania. I got one from Pennsylvania for you, Val. I'm sorry to say. Denise, Moon at I'm going through this. Tracy Bema. If you are new here, please subscribe to BMR on YouTube. Appreciate you guys. Just scrolling through. We got about 35 slowly rolling in. Brown Dwarf. Hey, Mr. Brown Dwarf. Love Brown Dwarf. Come on in. Go check out Brown Dwarf on YouTube. Keith from Michigan. My buddy Keith. Fantastic. Joe Stewart. How you doing? Scrolling down. If I miss you, don't mean I don't love you. Jason Finch. How's it going, my friend? Good to always see Jason Finch. Scrolling. A lot of the same people talking in the chat room. Okay, which is cool. Mr. G rides. Hey, Mr. G, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm gonna keep scrolling just for a little bit. Okay, that's about who's in the chat room. 35, 38 in chat now, and the same people are speaking, which is awesome. Again, I love the people in the chat room, but also I love the people that don't communicate in the chat room. Because let's face it, I get 80 to 100 people typically in a chat room, but I've got over 5,000 subscribers and a lot of people, you guys, that sending me these encounters are subscribers to the show, but they don't participate in the chat, which is awesome. They want to be anonymous, and those folks, I appreciate you as much as the people in chat because you promote and help the show grow. So hats off to everybody that just watches the show. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, wherever podcasts are found, you guys. We also do these in the podcast format, as well as, of course, on YouTube as live shows. So I love you guys. Thanks for coming in. And when I say I love you, I do mean it because without you, I wouldn't have a show. I probably would have a show because I simply love what I do. You know, if I talk to two people, it makes my day. And as I mentioned, these three encounters are from people that are subscribers. It's not that I don't even think they participate in chat because, again, not everybody participates. You folks that come into the chat room are pretty much the minority because most people will watch from a distance when the show is live or they'll watch the replay. But these encounters are fantastic. There's three of them, and this is going to take you right into the Blondes and the Booze right after me at 8 o'clock. So go check them out because they got a fantastic show today. It's talking about life after death. So go check them out. It's going to be an emotional show for the Blondes and for people that are afflicted with life after death. So please check that out. So I'm going to get on with this and give these encounter stories. There's three of them today, and they all revolve around a brief synopsis. They're going to revolve around like a dogman or a werewolf, a demonic dog, elementals of the forest, and Bigfoot. So I've got a variety and some alien intervention. So the show today is going to encapsulate. It's got something for everybody because I know everybody has the things they like more. You know, a lot of people like Dogman over Bigfoot, aliens over werewolves, this, that, and the other. So for those of you listening, it's going to have a lot of everything for you. Hey, little Patty, how are you? I saw that prayers for Val's husband, I think it was, that Pops mentioned earlier. I didn't get a chance to read that. Val, prayers out to you and your family. I didn't get to read that fully. Something's going on. So you're in my prayers, you and the family, Val. Thanks for coming on in. So with that being said, let's get this thing started. I don't want to run over the booze because I don't know how long this is going to be. So this first that I got is it's from this man named Alan, a subscriber to the channel, and I've been sitting on this like most of them. I get so many emails that it's so hard for me to keep them organized. I do my best. So this has been out. I've had this email since March of 2021, to be honest with you. So for those of you that sent things in, I do eventually get to them. I really do. So this guy starts it out with werewolf or demon or what, Rob? Demonic dog. And the majority of these that I tell you folks, I usually memorize most of them. I have a little cliff notes on the side so I can hit on key points. But this guy wrote this, and I'm going to read a little bit of it before I get started, then I'll just refrain back to my recollection. A lot of these, when people send them, love them to death. A lot of them you have to kind of rearrange because, like, I stink at math and other people stink at like writing. So it takes time to formulate these and make sense out of them. With that being said, no criticism on anybody because I love everybody. Everybody's different. We're all different human beings. Subscribe to Bigfoot Michiganrob if you're new. Hit that like button. Super chats are open. Memberships are open. Love you. Let's get started. He starts out by telling me, Rob, I ran for what seemed to be forever. He goes on to say, Rob, I must have dashed for like 50 yards from tree line from the tree line to grandfather's cabin in western Pennsylvania back in the summer of 1985. He goes on to say that I then was about 18 years old, and upon crashing through Grandpa's front door, he says, Rob, I literally fell to the floor crying like a little baby. I was gasping for air, and I tried to explain to my grandfather what had happened. Hey, BJ. My grandfather listened intently as he goes on to say, and then told me about a local legend of a creature that haunts the woods at night. Okay. He revealed that he had encountered it, the grandfather. He had encountered it before and warned me to be very careful. Grandfather goes on to explain that this beast was to be half man and half wolf. Now, the grandson, Alan, did not believe what his grandfather was telling him. So everybody, he thinks that the grandfather being like, you know how our grandfathers are, they're really cool. At least my grandfather, everybody, both of them that I had, fortunately, growing up, would always tell these cool stories, which as a young boy, and he even told these stories when I was in high school and off in college, always had a cool story. Always a great story around Christmas. So this guy is thinking, yeah, you know, grandfather's being grandfather, tell me cool stories. Whether he believes them or not, he doesn't know. And this guy goes on to say he can't believe what his grandfather's telling him. So anyway, as this young man barges through his grandfather's cabin, he goes on to tell his grandfather what he had seen. He says to his grandfather, he remembers seeing red eyes. Red eyes, everybody. There were at least 7 feet from the ground, and that had this very menacing growl. It was unlike a wolf. It was more shrilling And it was very disturbing in nature. It was very unnatural, he goes on to say. He says, Rob, really, that's the only way that I can describe it. Hey, Jim Christie, good to see you, buddy. So, anyways, excuse me, so anyway, the grandfather listens intently and tells his young grandson about a local legend of a creature that haunts the woods at night. He revealed that the grandfather had an encounter before, and he warned his grandson to be careful in the woods. He explained the beast to be half man and half wolf. He can't believe what grandfather's saying, thinks it's a yarn, and after calming down and processing this, as he said earlier, about the red eyes, about those red eyes, very unnatural. The young man, Alan, is taking in what grandfather is saying, and he just can't shake this, everybody. So he is like, he has to investigate this all further. Okay. The next night, this kid goes out with a flashlight. That's the only thing he's manned with. And he goes into the woods to find this creature. This creature that he crashed through grandfather's door telling him this story. Grandfather goes on to tell him about the half man, half wolf beast. So this kid, everybody, he's exuberant and he wants to move on and find this. The young Alan, he walks through the dense forest. He starts hearing these eerie sounds. He hears all these twigs. They start snapping. Suddenly, he saw the glowing eyes. Those same glowing red eyes staring at him through the trees. He says his heart starts racing. And he again runs back to grandfather's cabin as fast as he can. So this young Alan has had two experiences in the woods where his grandfather has warned him about this. And actually, the grandfather, I'm reading into this, doesn't want this Alan going out alone. Grandfather says, look, I tell you what, there's obviously, I can't stop you from going into this, going into the woods. I can't stop you from trying to find out what this is. But the grandfather says to his grandson, Alan, next time, Alan, you want to go into the woods, bring him along. Which I think is great. I think that the grandfather is not steering him in a different direction. I think he's concerned for his grandson. And he says, look, don't go alone. Thank you, Joe, Two Pops, for the $5. I appreciate that. Thank you ever so much. So, over the next few days, back at the cabin, strange things began happening. In this cabin, you guys, and this kid is now hanging out with his grandfather for a couple weeks as they're going to plan this venture into the woods. The strange things were happening. Items moved around on their own, young Alan is saying. Doors started creaking open in the middle of the night. There were unexplainable howls and noises that roared from the outside of the cabin. Alan says, grandfather, it's time to confront this creature once and for all. Alan, with his grandfather by his side, ventured deep into the woods, and grandfather brought along guns. They were armed. So everybody, now the grandfather was telling the stories about this wolf-like creature. This young man, Alan, twice now has seen something in the woods, saw red eyes hovering 7 feet above the ground. The grandfather says, let's go. So finally, as they're venturing into the woods, they did come across something. Alan says, we finally came face to face with what has been kind of on his mind, which has been tormenting him or scaring him. And it turns out, everybody, what they came across was a bear. It was a bear with an injured leg. Hello, Head Trip. Hello to everybody for coming on. Appreciate y'all. So young Alan, though, he's kind of relieved, but he says, this is not what I saw. He's still shaken from the ordeal prior. Grandfather looks at him. The injured bear goes off on his own way, and they return back to the safety within grandfather's cabin, which, by the way, as I mentioned earlier, has now become kind of like a paranormal home with doors opening, things being moved around for no reason. So again, keep that in the back of your minds. So young Alan is sitting there and thinks this is all just about ended. He wants more, you guys, I guess, than an injured bear. However, as he goes on to explain to me, Rob, that's not what happened in the slightest. Grandfather now goes on to tell Alan that the bear was not behind the strange activity around the cabin, and he says that it was not what his grandson Alan had encountered in the forest the first 2 prior times in the woods. Grandfather tells this young Alan that Alan is now marked and that the cabin was marked by these wolf-like beings. The bear had nothing to do with this, grandfather had said. Alan, for whatever reason, not really believing his grandpa, kind of apologizes to his grandfather and such. The grandfather says to young Alan, his grandson, now I'm going to take you out. He says, it's about time. I know where we're to go in the depths of the woods, unlike where we just were. Alan asks his grandfather, what are you talking about? And the grandfather replies to his grandson, we're going out to rid his land in Pennsylvania of this evil. Okay. Alan is all inquisitive. He says, Grandpa, I'm going to believe your stories, what you were telling me that I kind of was blowing off. What do you know about these creatures? What is it exactly that we're looking for? This young kid says. Grandfather sat back and tells young Alan the story. The grandfather goes on to tell young Alan about a cult that worships Satan and tried to summon the dog of the devil. Grandfather said to Alan that this story was started way back in the mid 1900s, everybody. So this is going back into history. This is just not something that just sporadically came about. There's some history. There's some legend behind this, dating to the 1900s. The grandfather says that this was brought to him from one of his First Nations friends. He goes on to say that it was a Chief 4-Tracks. The chief went on to tell Grandpa that the land was tainted. You see, Chief 4-Tracks, everyone, that was the first person that the grandfather told of his dogman or demon dog experience, which the grandfather had. Chief 4-Tracks warned the grandfather never to enter that part of the woods, as he would become marked as well as his property, despite the tainted land that evolved back in the 1900s. Whatever the story behind that is, I'm not sure. So young Alan is thinking that it's his responsibility, or that it was his fault, that he brought this back, right, to his grandfather's area. Grandfather said, no, it has nothing to do with you. Don't worry about it. This land's been tainted. You just now have brought up the energy, the vibration. Grandpa also wanted to tell his grandson about it back in the 1900s, which involved an alleged kidnapping, okay, you guys, back in the day, of a pregnant local woman who was never found. Going back to the demon dog, it was believed that she was sacrificed and her unborn child was given to the forest or to the demons of this dog, which perhaps was controlled by Lucifer. Years later went on, and local tribe folks in the area, again back in the late 1900s, reportedly saw a red-eyed, sinister-looking half-man, half-wolf lurking in the forest. It was believed, you guys, to be that the woman's sacrificed child, raised by a pack of evil, devil-like dogs that almost could turn into humans or shapeshift. For many years, back in the 1900s through the early 1930s and 40s, many children and women turned up missing, and in some instances reported murdered in the woods by something unknown, until a local shaman came along. This local shaman, you guys, back in the 1930s, went into the forest trying to break this curse, and allegedly he sacrificed himself to help break the curse. Upon this happening, this shaman, the kidnappings of women and children, and the mayhem stopped for many decades, according to tribal legend, until back in 1974, when a local woman vanished and her skinned corpse was found in the very same woods. An investigation was performed by tribal police, and they kept it secret from the quote-unquote real world, or from the white man. Until this day, until the story was presented to me, it's been kept secret. So young Alan says, Rob, I can't believe what my grandfather's hearing me about this local legend, the 1900s, this demonic red eyes he's seeing in the woods. What grandfather is saying to him, he can't wrap his hands around it. His brain, you guys, is just, he just can't process the information. Much like myself, when I saw my first alleged Dogman or Bigfoot or whatever the heck it was, you cannot process this. And he trusts his grandfather, right? He can't believe what was going on, he said he got the chills. Now he's thinking, this kid Alan thinks that he's in contact with perhaps the devil himself, right? He goes on to say, Rob, I was about to find out some other details. For the very last time, the grandfather, Alan, and now Chief Fortrax, they decide to embark on a mission back in the woods to cast evil from the property for the very last time. Rob, was about 1 o'clock in the morning when the three of them ventured out back into the forest once and for all. Grandfather's getting up in years. The grandfather planned to give this property to his grandson, Alan, when he passed, and he wants this to make this safe for his grandson. They're in the woods. They sat. They waited. Then Alan says it was kind of strange because immediately Chief Fortrax and Grandpa, they brought no weapons, unlike the previous time. So he was kind of wondering why no weapons. Fortrax and Grandfather in unison retorted something to the words of, the power of faith, no matter what or who you believe in, is your weapon. The power of faith, whatever that may be, whatever you worship or pray to. It was now approaching about 3 o'clock in the morning. And yes, everybody, the red glowing eyes, they appeared. They hovered again, just like before, 7 feet above ground. Young Alan wants to run, but Grandpa grabbed him. He grabbed him by the arm, and he told him to stay and show no fear. Alan says, Rob, my fear expands. The glowing red eyes were filled. They were filling him. He's seen these red eyes, and what happened was this: is they emerged from the wood line, and what appears, everybody, is this half man, half wolf-looking creature that materializes right in front of them. All three of them. Rob, this creature was very fierce looking, very physical in stature. A huge wolf-like head, and the hair or fur almost appeared to be like feather-like, which I found to be kind of interesting. I never heard about any of these creatures, whether it's Dogman werewolves, demonic cases, feathers. I didn't quite get that, but that's what he tells me. He says he had to keep covering his eyes to ensure that he was seeing clearly. Then from his sitting position down on the ground, Chief Fortrax rose up and walked right towards the being. So Fortrax is walking toward this, whatever it is, this creature. Alan is terrified. The chief now reaches into a pelt wrapped around his waist and threw some sort of dust in this monster's direction, whatever it is. The wolf-like creature now elevates from the ground up into the air. It lets out a menacing scream and evaporated into the night's air. The chief who administered this pouch of dust or whatever it was, he passes out. It takes him about 5 minutes for him to regain consciousness. When he awakens, he says the evil is gone from the land, if I remember correctly. Alan says in the final part of this email says, Rob, I never told anybody this story, including my parents. He says, today I continue to research Dogman and the strange phenomena in this area. And he says, Rob, ever since the tribal chief had made mention of this evil casted away, he's never come across anything close to the experiences. He goes on to say, Rob, unfortunately, my grandfather has passed away. He died about a decade later. And in his will, as he told his grandson earlier, Alan, he bestowed the entire property upon him, which he now owns today. And in the note, the grandfather writes, excuse me, guys, remember what you have learned of the land. I trust you will do the right thing. Love, Grandpa. So, that's the first one. I don't know. That had a lot of spooky elements. I don't quite understand how it simply took this tribal leader, this shaman or whatever it was, to all of a sudden cast away the evil from the period of the 1900s. If that was that easy, the way I think it should have been or could have been done long, many moons ago. But I don't know. I don't question anybody and what they experience, what they tell me. You just have to go with what they say. But there was a lot of, I don't know if it was a dog of the devil. I don't know. I certainly think it was something paranormal, perhaps, right? I think most of you might agree to that. But I thought it was an encounter that this young Alan is forever not going to forget. The young man owns this property now. According to him, he still has it. It's not up for sale. He hasn't had anything happen. He's still as much active in Dogman research as he suggested to me in the email. Leave a comment later on, you guys. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. I want to thank all you guys for coming in. Thanks for anybody I missed. Head Trip, Sweet Pea, how you doing? Hey, Val. Yes, Val, that was from Pennsylvania. Gary Sr., North Alabama Cryptids, Mr. and Mrs. NAC, No One, Frost Kitten. I mentioned a lot of you guys earlier, so thanks for coming in. If you're new, please subscribe. Hit the like button if you would. We're moving on. Also, thank you to the super chat, which handed out by Joe Two Pops. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. So I'm on with the second one, and this one, I remember a week or two ago. Remember, you guys, if you were watching or listening, I did a story about all these. It was in the mountains. It was the Uintah Basin, I believe it was, and a lot of orbs came down to this family's property. And if you guys recall from that story, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, while these orbs, they kept getting closer and closer throughout the years. And throughout the years, these orbs turned into, were presented in front of this couple as like men, like with like horse people that had men that had heads, but the heads were on like animals, like mules and donkeys and horses running about their property. So yeah, I did that a couple weeks ago. But this is kind of, I love the data I get from these stories. So this one here reminds me of that, but it's all too much different. And again, that's why I enjoy doing this, because a lot of these things match up over time. So I find it to be very interesting. I hope you do too. Hi, Tracy. How are you? Thanks, everybody, for coming in once again. So this guy goes on to say, hey, Rob, my name is Trevor. And he says he lived in Georgia, just outside of the Chattahoochee, Oconee, I think you say, how you pronounce it, National Forest from the years dating from 2017 through 2021. He goes on to say that Rob, during this time frame, he experienced more than his share of high strangeness. As he goes on, he goes on to say to me that he was married for like 20 years to his wife, Sally. This is where I'm gonna get all screwed up. This guy is telling me this, and he's writing me this, and his wife is named Sari, Sari, and his daughter's name is Mari, Mari. So, you know that I'm going to screw this up. Sari the wife, Mari the daughter. Okay. You can't make this stuff up. Goes on to say that his wife and himself, they're both in the late 40s, and the daughter, Mari, is about 21 at the time of this email. And I got this email 8 months ago. Young Trevor, the guy Trevor goes on to tell me, "Hi Yvette, how you doing?" Says that he works in pharma sales, and his wife, Sari, I'm gonna have to over enunciate Sari and Mari. Sari is the wife is a professional photographer, and the daughter, Mari, lives with them. She's trying to figure things out, go off to college, this, that, and the other. As of today, folks, they now live in Atlanta, Georgia. So they since have moved from where this encounter takes place. He also does a lot of traveling. A lot of it's done in Atlanta, he's telling me. So it just made sense despite what I'm about to tell you guys. He goes, it's actually an excuse about work. He just wanted to get the hell out of where he was. Hey, CJ. He goes on to say that he said many of these strange experiences that's haunted the family. He goes on to say, Rob, they even got to the point where they became detrimental to our lives. Going back a little bit, they moved into a beautiful one-story, 2,000 square foot ranch in the spring of 2017. He goes on to say they had an enormous wraparound, beautiful deck or porch. They gave them a 360-degree view of the Oconee National Park or National Forest. Rob, we live on 2 acres of land in a meadow where the woods surrounded us on all sides. He goes on to say. The neighbors to the left, the neighbors to the right were about 50 or 60 yards away, giving them the privacy that Trevor and Sari that they wanted, right? He goes on to say to Rob, in the year of 2017, nothing was really weird. He just remembers that year of 2017, when first purchasing the home, was nothing short of spectacular. Everything he wanted. Beautiful views, beautiful home, beautiful wife, beautiful daughter, getting ready to go to college, figure out what she had going on with her life. So a nice, pleasant family. Goes on to say again to me, Rob, we felt at home. We just wanted to kick back and help out Mari, the daughter, of what she wanted to do with her life. Sari, the wife, was she loved it because I guess the wife, Sari, was a professional photographer. She had a career, the wife, in photography. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, Trevor was a pharmaceutical salesman and spent a lot of time in and out of Atlanta and the surrounding suburbs and business districts of Atlanta selling his product. So he just loved coming home and seeing the wife, seeing the daughter after a long day. Rob, 2018 rolls around. Sorry, the wife is pregnant with their second child. I'm like, wow. They've got a 20-something and now they're having their second child. Didn't get into it, everybody. Didn't ask why the delay. Again, not uncommon. Again, that's what he says, right? He goes, Rob, things started to get a little bit strange. Hi, Kelly Lewis. Things started to get a little bit strange and eventually turned really quite horrific. Hello, Andrew. I can't wait to see you, Andrew, in Missouri, brother. If I miss saying hi, hello to everybody. BMR. Again, things start to get strange now in this year of 2018. One night, Sari, Mari, and Trevor are out on the porch of the yard. Trevor's barbecuing dinner, and the three of us were sitting down having that family talk. They're talking about really the daughter's plans for the future and just the other general family chit chat, right? Just after dinner, just as the sun was getting ready to settle, Mari says, Hey Dad, look out to the edge of the tree line. Dad, where are those lights coming from? So this dude Trevor gets up, he says, he looks at the tree line and he sees a set of 3 round blue, orange, and yellow orb-shaped objects in the distance at the tree line. It was floating across the edge of the woods. Just floating about, moving around a little bit, almost like he says they're kind of dancing a little bit. Hey, Duke, good to see you. Hey, Rob, man, these lights are moving like kind of parallel with the ground, but they're also darting about horizontally, vertically, in every which way. But it was very controlled, and they moved in a sequence. Then the objects move closer to the home and just kind of stop. I find this fascinating because, as I made mention earlier, it reminds me of one of the stories I got from somebody, which is vaguely similar yet different. And these stories nobody heard of before. They're like a year apart. And that's why I like the data from what people send in, because I find it fascinating that a lot of these things match up, just like Bigfoot crossing the road or Dogman on the side of the car. I just find this fascinating how these things match up. And if you didn't see those shows, it's just trust me. So anyway, they kind of stop and these orbs are like 20 yards away from their vantage point, from their point of view. And Sari, the wife, who's a professional photographer, always has a camera on herself. She starts snapping photos. Then as she starts snapping these photos, it's like in an instance, the orbs suddenly, and he goes, Hey, Rob, man, this guy Trevor says, almost in a blink of an eye, they rocketed towards the sky and they vanished. Trevor, Sari, the wife, Mari, the daughter, I should have given those two different names just to tell this story, right? Anyways, they're pondering what they just saw. They're like looking in bewilderment. They're looking in amazement. First thing that Trevor thinks is he knows they can't be flashlights or anything or headlamps. His property is kind of situated, by itself. The closest neighbors were 50 yards to the left, 50 yards to the right, and then it's the Oconee Forest in the background. It goes on to say that, Rob, it's not quite dark outside. Again, the neighbors are a good distance away. So, sorry now, who snapped the wife, the professional photographer, she runs off to her studio to develop the pictures that she had just taken. So yeah, they all go back in the house waiting for the wife to take care of the pictures. They all eagerly wait around for these pictures to be developed of these crazy orbs, these images, right? The beautiful blues, reds, yellows, whatever color they were. To the amazement of Sari, the professional photographer, and everybody else, they're kind of shocked a little bit. They're amazed, and Trevor says maybe kind of shocked is the better word, because the three colored images that the wife snapped and took photos of seemed to take on the iteration of faces. So, in other words, beautiful orbs dancing about. The wife takes pictures, develops the pictures, and now when she's looking back, expecting to get the beautiful colors of the orbs, is not at all what she expected to see. Iterations of faces is what she now sees from the development of the photos. Rob, though, however, these faces were not human at all. They almost looked alien or even animal like. The images were kind of disturbing, he goes on to tell me. Sorry, the wife, again, boy, sorry and Mari, everybody. In all of her years as a photographer, could not explain the photos. She knew that one thing was for certain, though, that the objects cast in the images of the photographs were indeed real. What they were remained the question. There was no dust on the camera lens. There was no apparent evidence of electronic malfunction or any other related reason for the images to be distorted. Hi, Ivy. Hi, Barbara. They were clean, professional photos. So now the spring rolls into summer without further adventures. No orbs, nothing. Nothing strange happens, nothing anomalous. Life is getting back to normal after this experience. Spring now rolls into summer. Trevor, his name is Trevor, the guy that sent me this. Hey, Rob, he says, hey, Trevor says to me for the email, all of a sudden the orbs appeared again in the middle of the summer, one summer's night. Rob, I got to tell you, though, this experience was much more frightening and made us all question our own insanity. What are we looking at? So they're questioning now, I guess, on this next experience, which I'm about to tell you. They're like wowed by this. They were disturbed by this. Trevor goes on to say, again, Rob, it's myself, the wife, and the daughter. Sorry Amari, everybody. Sorry Amari. Yes, indeed. So they're out on their porch. The sun just began to set. He goes, Rob, it was a beautiful, warm Georgian summer night. The three of them gaze out toward the woods when the very same blue, orange, yellow, orb-like objects, they appear. They sat in movement just outside the tree line, just like before. Then in an instant, they were shot to the sky. They're gone. This encounter, this experience was not like the previous experience from the past year. Rob was weird. It only took a matter of minutes, this guy goes on to tell me. They all look at each other perplexed, this family. Then all of a sudden, you guys, he goes on to tell me that maybe, hey, Mopar, Bill, good to see you, Mopar. Good to see everybody coming on in. I know I'm doing these stories, so I don't pay much attention to chat. Hit that thumbs up button. If you're new, please subscribe. Appreciate each and every single one of you. Anyway, 30 minutes or so goes by. They hear this low humming sound. And they feel this vibration or something vibrating beneath their feet on their back porch. Then they saw this huge, okay, you guys, ready for this? Now it gets kind of even weirder. They see this huge triangular shaped craft fly over the top of the tree line, and it proceeds towards their house. It stops, and it hovers no more than maybe 100 feet away from their porch that the family's nestled on, right? There were three lights on each corner of the craft. He goes, Rob, I believe one was blue, one's orange, and another is yellow. The identical colors, everybody, of the orbs that they had seen prior dancing about the tree line. But these orbs were not in the shape of a triangular craft. They were individuals. They were their own. Rob, I estimate that the craft was perhaps 200 feet long. He says it's kind of tough to gauge exactly the size. I do remember, Rob, he says, it was triangular in shape. And the object sat in place for about 5 minutes or so when a beam of light from the bottom of the craft was emitted to the ground. It appeared that two bipedal beings were transported from the craft to the ground. So in other words, okay, this triangular object, flying saucer, craft, UFO, whatever you want to call it, it's kind of the opposite. You all hear the stories about these craft emitting a beam of light and people are like abducted. Well, there's something transported now on their property, two bipedal beings. These beings stopped, looked at the family, looked at them. They ran back into the tree line, back into the forest. These beings are now out of sight. The craft doesn't fly off. It just simply dissipated into the air. He says the two humanoids were beast-like, Rob. They're beast-like. Misshapen wolf-like heads, dark skin. They appeared to have powerful bodies, this, that, and the other. They ran into the woods. It took seconds and they were gone. Ran much faster than a human being could possibly ever run. The family, Trevor, Sari, and Mari, look at each other in disbelief. What is going on here? The young daughter starts to cry. Trevor says to me, Rob, this would be the last time that my family is ever the same again. The very next morning, Sari woke up with stomach pains. Now, you guys remember, as I told you earlier, Sari was pregnant with her second child. And I mentioned earlier, that was kind of wow. You know, she got a 20-year-old daughter, and now, again, it's not my business. Just kind of odd to me, you know. Anyways, that's why I'm kind of you'll find out why I suggest that is I'm about to tell you guys. Okay. Sari wakes with stomach pains, fearful for the baby. They rush off to the hospital. They called the doctor that's in charge of the wife's pregnancy. There's about an hour or so into the examination by the doctor when he comes out and he emerges out and tells Trevor about his wife, what his findings were. He goes out to see that the doctor gave him the news that his wife lost the baby. I don't know how far in she was. I didn't get into that with this guy. I don't know, 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months. I don't know the detail. And he goes out to tell me, Rob, I'm not giving you the details on this, but the child was lost. Six days later, the daughter, Mari, all of a sudden stopped speaking. I'm like, and I'm talking with this guy back at the email. He didn't want to give me his phone number, so I'm doing all this through email. What do you mean your daughter, Mari, quit speaking? Rob, what I mean is not uttered a word upon her mom's loss of the baby. Pretty much after the incident with these alleged the craft, aliens, dogmen, whatever this is. Rob, for me, I have continual nightmares up till today. The orbs, the craft, the wolf-like monsters are all in his visions. More horrifically, he goes on to tell me, it's not just that these creatures ran off into the forest at the nighttime, but they're still there. And they now come back and they venture out of the tree line without any craft, without any orbs, but they appear and they get close to the back of the house. And they're accompanied, if that's how you say it, sorry, by a smaller infant looking creature. A smaller infant creature. Not too long after the loss of the baby with the wife, Sari. Is that symbolism, he asked me? Was my baby abducted, he asked me? I can only comfort the guy and say I don't have answers. I'm not a professional. I don't know. Possibly. Kind of sad. I don't know, you guys. Leave a comment on that one. When you guys, go watch it later when you get back on YouTube. Rob, my life's goal is to get answers for my family. If I ever get the answers, I'll let you know. and he'll reach out. He's at a loss for words. Signed Trevor. Again, you guys, I don't know what to think of that one. That was pretty wow, amazing, sad, crazy. I've heard similar stories like this before. Not given into me, but I've on other, podcasts or shows or whatever. I got one more left. Thank you, Midnight Smoker. That's fantastic. Midnight Smoker for the awesome super chat. The super chat is a great way to help support what we all do around here. Bigfoot, you become a BMR pirate. I love you guys for coming in, spending some time with me. I got one more to do for you before we run up into the blondes and the booze. I appreciate each and every single one of you for coming in. If you're new, please subscribe to good old BMR on YouTube. What I do have to do is I got to stretch my legs for a minute. I got to take about a 45-second break, and I got to check on something with my mom. As you guys knew, I kind of watched my mom a little bit. I mean, she's okay, but I got to check on her, and I got to stretch the good old legs. Thank you. Love you. Don't go nowhere. I'll be right back in, 45 seconds. I don't know if that was 45 seconds, but yeah, I hate doing that. When you do a show by yourself without a co-host, you got to kind of stretch out a little bit. And quite frankly, I had to use the restroom. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I had to go. This one last encounter I got involves elementals of the forest, possibly a Bigfoot, and some portals. A portal, I should say. I think you guys will like this. Thank you for each and every single one of you for coming on in. I do love you guys. Thank you for the support, the love, and helping my channel grow. If you're new, of course, please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Tell me what you think. Leave a comment. It does help promote book sales. For those that bought my 2 books out on Amazon, thank you. I appreciate it. Leave a comment when Amazon comes calling with an email. Love you guys. If I did not say hello to each and every single one of you. This dude's name is Bill. And I titled this Lost in the Woods. And hey, Rob, I'm going with the generic name of Bill. Not to be judged or ridiculed. This is why I watch your show. You're not one to make fun or pass judgment. I thank you for that. And Bill, I thank you for the kind words if you're watching. This all started for me, he goes on to say, back in the summer of 2023. So this is maybe 2 years ago, guys. He goes on to say that, however, in the fall of 2021, he moved to the forest in the foothills of the mountains of northern Georgia. I'm not going to be more specific about my location, I admit, because I suffer from paranoia. And it's not solely about my experiences, but is my personality in general. I'm very reclusive. I keep to myself. He goes on to say that he retired along with his wife. All his kids were grown. They moved out. They were on their own career paths. He goes on to say the place that he built, it was his retirement home. And it's in an area, though, where he was very familiar with, where he camped and fished and hunted for over 20 years. So he's very familiar with the forest. He goes on to say that the mountainside of the location was a key factor in making the change. He had a brilliant view of the mountains. Rob, I know this place like the back of my hand, he tells me. He goes on and tells me that he is studied and teaches about survival skills. Gets into about knowing about the sounds of wildlife and all that encompasses being a true outdoors person. He also says he knows about cryptids, fascinated with Bigfoot and the other strange phenomena in our universe. Very open-minded guy, this guy. Now, fast forwarding 2 years in the summer of 2023. Hey, Bubby P, good to see you. If you're new, please subscribe. "2023 goes on to say and tells me his story. He says, as I mentioned earlier, this place where I hunt and fish and camp, I'm very familiar with. He goes to plan a camping trip in his area for 3 or 4 days out in the woods. His wife went on to visit his sister in Florida. Her sister in Florida, I should say. He wanted some time alone. It was a great way now he could break out and do what he loves to do, enjoy the outdoors, and go hunt and fish. He arrives at his camping spot at about 6 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday. He packed enough dry canned foods, water, the usual supplies for about 4 days, dry foods, whatever. Just enough to fuel his body. He goes on to tell me this, that, and the other. He also planned on catching some fish and eating that, this, that, and the other. We've all heard these before, right? He goes on to say, Rob, the first 2 days went great. He caught some fish. He hiked a few of the trails and having a pleasant time alone in the woods where he's at peace. Rob, the third day, though, is when everything kind of fell apart for me, he goes on to say. He goes, it was funny, though, because the prior nights, a feeling of not being alone overtook this guy, Bill. He says he woke up to a very cold wind, and he could hear the whispers of his name being called out in the night's air. That's kind of spooky. You're by yourself. It's chilly. The whispering of your name being called out in the night's air. The moon was high, he goes on to tell me. You can hear the moaning of coyotes in the distance. He says, Rob, the moaning of the coyotes, though, is that of like crying. He goes, it was very odd, very unusual. Rob, in fact, I think the coyotes seem to be scared, he says. He says that in between their yelps, his name was continually being vocalized out to him in the night's air. Again, creepy. Goes on to say, yeah, I'm creeped out, chills, goosebumps, they're running down my body, this, that, and the other. But then he goes on to think that he thinks it's a prank being pulled on him somehow from his best friend. Oh, what's his name? I think it was Charles or Chuck, okay? Charles or Chuck, I'll just go with Charles, was a noted prankster and best friend of this guy. Charles, what a great buddy this guy is. Charles also knows about Bill's bouts with paranoia. So this guy knows how to dig into this guy and get him going. Great friend. Well, we all got him. So now he hears his name, his whispers of his name being, vocalized throughout the night's air in the woods. He gets out of his tent to he tries to listen more closely. He realizes, though, this isn't Charles. It's very strange. He says it's a very hollow voice, a very distant voice. But he says Robert wasn't human. He immediately thinks about leaving his campsite and racing home. He's kind of frantic at this point, everybody. Hey, Scott, good night, brother. He said he thought it was best just to stay put and tuck his way back in his tent. Crawls back into the tent, zips his sleeping bag up over his head, and decides to wait for daybreak to make a decision on whether to stay or go home because this guy's really creeped out. The sounds of his name continue throughout the night for about at least another hour. Rob's sunrise at this point cannot come fast enough. He does not recall sleeping or anything. He says in an odd way he felt comforted when the sun rose and penetrated his tent with the daylight before him. He prepares, he gets out of his sleeping bag, and he ventures out of his tent. He goes, "Hey, Rob, man." He goes, "This is where I thought I lost my mind." He goes, "I get out of my tent, and I immediately knew that I was not in this same camping site. The river that rolled several yards away was gone. The tree line that surrounded me took on a new landscape. Even the trees and grass were different. The trees seemed much taller and wider. They had a haunting look, even during the daylight. He became nauseous. He became confused. He reaches for his compass, and the arm of the compass was in a continual, perpetual spin. It did not stop. His cell phone battery was dead. His GPS was dead. He says to me, "Rob, it's like I'm in a different realm, a different land, or even a different state." He says, "There's not one thing that was familiar to me." He goes, "Rob, I'm lost." And he goes, "Rob, as I told you earlier, I know these woods like the back of my hand." He runs off. He wants to run to his truck now and get the hell out of there. Now his fears escalate because he gets to his truck and the battery in his truck is dead, just as the landscape around him changed and everything else. The river that ran through his campsite was also now gone. The roadway that he drove on, gone. He can't keep it together. He says, "Rob, I broke down. I cried. I'm going nuts." An hour or so goes by. He says, "Man, I got to pull it together, Rob." He's telling me. He goes, "Rob, I'm an experienced survivalist. I've been camping in the same area for 20 years. What is going on?" Goes on to say that he's grateful the sun is still out. It's early in the morning. So he ventures out looking for a way out. He tries to solve this riddle, this mystery. He goes, "Rob, even the thought of my name being called out late at night, the whispering of my name, wasn't even an issue. He now feels his life is in jeopardy." He became frustrated. Panic mode sets in. Rob, one of the things I learned in survival training 101 was never to panic. He knew better. He now tries to calm down. Rob, after an hour traversing this now unfamiliar land, it started. You know what started, everybody? His name. Hi, Amy. Arr, Amy. Yes, my name's his name. The haunting of his name and the whisper of his name was being called out to him. Now he's really scared. But he says, Rob, in a strange way, following my survival skills, I start to follow the direction in which my name is being spoken from, because he believes this is the source of his experience. His name gets louder. It seems to get closer as he's walking, venturing toward his name being uttered throughout the wilderness. He starts to get a sense of relief. Then all of a sudden, the whispers of his name stops. Now he's riddled with grief. At first, he's spooked and haunted right by his name being called out. But now all of a sudden, as he's trying to follow his name, it stops. Now he's kind of ticked off. He gets scared again. He sits on the nearby tree stump. The tree was huge, at least 5 feet in diameter, he goes on to say. All the trees were much wider. Then all of a sudden he notices that all these trees are much wider and taller than any he's ever seen. He says, I can't go on to compare these about the redwoods of California, as I think that's what he said, because he had never been in California. He'd just seen them from pictures. He gazes out into the huge trees surrounding him. Now he says, Rob, I'm losing my mind. The trees were 4 or 5 feet from the base of the ground, took on the image of faces. He blinks. He blinks again. Then suddenly his name from the distance called out. His name from the distance calls out. And it speaks something different to him now. It says, follow. Now the voices say follow. Not his name, but the word follow. Perplexed, confused, trying to comprehend this, he follows. He follows. Now he sees faces in the trees. He walked for an hour. He follows these haunted faces that are now appearing on the trees. Then in the distance, here's the flow of water. It was the river. He's now getting back to where he was supposed to have been. So apparently, when it said follow, and he's seeing these faces emerge and matriculate in the trees, which are very haunting, but this man still follows because that's his way out. Despite being terrified, his survival skills kicked in and he just followed. He had that innate ability to follow. Now the river that was gone, guess what? He sees the river. He feels a spring in his step. The forest once again became familiar. Ahead of the road, he sees his campsite. It comes back to familiarity. He sees where his truck is parked. He makes it back. When he makes it back, everybody, as I mentioned earlier, remember how all the electronics were dead? The cell phone was now functional. GPS was functional. The compass was now working. The arrow wasn't spinning at random. His truck starts back up. He was back. In conclusion, Rob, what the hell was that? Did I go through a portal? I've heard of elementals. Do you think the forest directed me back to where I need to go? I respond back, yeah, because BMR believes in the elementals of the forest. I believe this guy maybe walked through a portal, perhaps. I mean, how can he explain how he was in unfamiliar grounds or anything like that? Yeah, unfamiliar. Unfamiliar grounds. Elementals of the forest, everybody. I believe they exist. I believe portals exist. I think that's what he did. And you know what? I know my buddies, the Blondes and the Boos, they're going to be on about 4 minutes. I did that perfectly. I thought I was going to go over. I hope you guys enjoyed. I appreciate each and every. You know what, you guys, thanks for coming on in. These shows I do by myself on Fridays are turning pretty good. You guys love them. I hope I'm going to continue to do them on Fridays in the evening before the Blondes. Give me a like on your way out. If you're new, please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Once again, I'm going to have to thank the super chats from Joe, 2 Pops, Midnight Smoker. Love you guys. Subscribe. Check out the Blondes and Boos. Give yourself a little break. They're going to be they're going to be on in 2 minutes. I'm cutting it close. I love you guys. Thanks for coming in. I'll see you Saturday night at 11 with Monica, Brandy, and Krista with some with a late night with BMR. Love you guys. And until next time, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And once I can find my extra, I'll see y'all later. Love you.
This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks, with an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.